Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Maya Aaron, and I'm a partner and commercial litigator at Mark, Migdal, and Hayden in Miami. I am proud to be the volunteer president of Jewish National Fund in Miami, and I will serve as today's MC. One of the benefits about this virtual era has been our ability to create more engaging programs to a wider audience than ever before. Today, we are joined by people from more than 15 states, Canada, and of course, Israel. By now, we're all familiar with Zoom. Here are some house rules for today's format. All members of the audience will be kept on mute. We will be sharing slides, pre-recorded videos, and you will be able to hear from our panelists live. During the program, you can enter into the chat any questions you have, and they will be addressed at the end of the program in a Q&A. Before we show you a short video on the great work we're doing in Israel, I want to thank today's sponsors. Our silver level supporting sponsor is Mr. Sol Gersh, founder of Medix, a new immune boosting inhaler. Sol is based in Bal Harbour, Miami, and is a lifelong entrepreneur, artist, designer, and inventor. His startup, Medix, has created a cleaner, safer, and healthier nasal inhaler with a patented proprietary juice vial. Their proven ingredients with a patented inhaler design results in a more cost-effective product that suits, refreshes, and is also immunoboosting as an antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory. Initial lab testing has been completed and their seed round B for funding is underway. A big congratulations to Sol for his support of Israel through JNF and for this timely product. Thank you, Sol. Our gold level leading sponsor today is both a new member of JNF's Herzl Society, a major donor to our campaign in support of Israel, and a member of the BioTech industry. Mr. Peter Feinberg of Sunny Isles Beach, Miami, is founder of Breach Bio and Sporus Bio Ventures. He's a board member and lead investor at Immunuri and a partner at Boxcard Partners. Thank you both for your support today. For those of you not familiar with Jewish National Fund, we are a non-denominational, apolitical 501c3 nonprofit organization fundraising to continue the development of the State of Israel across 7 action areas, which we will hear about momentarily. Our donor partners and volunteer board members include people from all backgrounds and faiths. Our mission is to secure and strengthen the State of Israel by developing the southern communities of the Negev and the northern communities of the Galilee, as well as support the innovation being birthed there that's contributing to the global community. Without further ado, let's take a high-level look at the work we do before we begin today's discussions.
It all begins with a vision of lush and breathtaking forests where once was only rocky and brown land. A vision of transforming the Negev and the Galilee, injecting a vitality that is transforming them into places people want to live. A vision for us to speak our values, leaving no one behind. A vision of quenching the thirst of Israel's population and allowing the agricultural economy to thrive. A vision that searches for solutions that will make a better tomorrow. A vision of a continuum, ensuring that we are raising tomorrow's leaders today. A vision that understands that a nation must know its past to create a stronger future. Be a part of our vision. Join us.
It's my privilege to introduce you to 2 extraordinary women. Noa Zer's key leadership has enabled communities in the Negev Central Arava region to flourish and grow. And she's a proud Sabra who works with her husband to make Israel's desert bloom on their pepper farm. Please welcome the Central Arava Regional Council's Director of Resource Development, Noa Zer. Dr. Rivki Ofir is a senior researcher at the Arava Research and Development Center. She holds a BS in chemistry and physics and an MS in cell biology from Hebrew University, a doctorate in cancer biology from Ben Gurion University, and a postdoctorate at Salk Institute in San Diego, California, in molecular biology, and a postdoc in apoptosis of programmed cell death from Wehi, Melbourne, Australia. So Dr. Ofir, thank you for joining us today. What kind of work are you currently involved with at the Arava R&D Center in the field of biotech?
I'm part of the R&D, which is in the middle of the desert of the Arava. And it was just natural for me to choose the wisdom of the desert plant to look for new pharmaceutical entities in this plant. And basically, I'm looking for plants that can give leads for drugs against cancer and to improve the situation of brain diseases. Mainly, we do either tea or extract and screen them against a model of the diseases. We have already several plants which can serve as tea, like I'm drinking now, for the benefit of the health of the people. And we are hoping to lead a more sophisticated research in order to enable this product to be available to human beings. By doing so, we can maybe contribute also to healthy aging, not only preventing disease.
Thank you, Dr. Ofir. And what current initiatives are you working on in Agrotech right now?
The situation in the R&D in the desert is great because we have the way to combine science, research, and agriculture, because we are areas that do a lot of agriculture, fruits and vegetables. And we do sophisticated research in order to produce safe, eatable products, crops, and mainly try to use the wisdom of the desert in order, for example, to do probiotic against disease in the plants and make them grow in a healthy manner. So when one can go to the supermarket and eat something which benefits him, he knows that it doesn't contain too much of chemicals, which is now not so much available. In addition, the conditions that we grow, the protocols that we use to grow the plants, make them very rich with antioxidant, all the goodies that prevent diseases. And what's nice about the BioTech and the Agrotech, that when I find a good plant in the BioTech area, I can ask the Agrotech, the agriculture R&D, to grow it, to make a protocol to cultivate it, and then it can go to the farmers, and it can be a new crop for the area of the Arava. So I think we benefit from both agriculture and science in the middle of the desert.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ofir, and thank you for all the fantastic work that you do in the Arava. Noa, what is the Arava's R&D Center's national and global impact and contribution?
So first of all, since we haven't had a chance to see the clip, maybe a short overview where the Arava is at. So the Arava is actually located halfway between Beersheba and Eilat, deep down in the desert along the Jordanian border. And it's an area with no water, with extreme climate. It's almost like the Mojave Desert in a way. And despite all those natural conditions, this region is leading Israel's world-renowned agriculture industry. We've got 500 farms here spread across 1.5 million kilometers, and we are producing more than 50% of Israel fresh vegetable export, which is quite amazing when you talk about a region with less than 5 inches of rain a year. And that valuable knowledge, or the way we've been able to do that, is with the help of the scientists and the researchers at the Arava research. More with so little resources is something that a lot of countries in the world are dealing right now. So desertification on one hand and no water on the other hand, and the dilution of the natural resources of the planet, that has been a basic the beginning. And that's why we believe that the knowledge that we've gathered here in the Arava is so important. And we do not just keep it here in the region, but we share it with thousands of students from developing countries that are arriving to the Arava every year to study exactly that. it's not just the agricultural knowledge, it's also I would say the chutzpah to dare and to dream and to define nature and to decide that we can do something. If you want, if you will it, it is no dream. And we've done so for many years with the help of the Jewish National Fund. And we're inviting over 1,100 students a year to attend our school, ACAT, Arava International Center for Agriculture Training, where we teach students from Africa and Asia the principles of agriculture. I also what it means to be an entrepreneur in the fields of agriculture, and also what it's like to be a leader. And we believe that knowledge is so valuable in today's world, and we take a lot of pride to help a little bit the food security restoration of a lot of other communities around the globe.
Thank you, Noa. How has the coronavirus pandemic affected the Central Arava community this year?
Well, that's an interesting question. The Arava is probably the most isolated region in Israel. For many years, that has been our main disadvantage and the reason why JNF has been so active in our region. During COVID time, it's probably the first time in history where our natural isolation has proven to be an advantage because we are isolated within nature. And the most amazing thing is that the social solidarity amongst the community here, 1,000 families in the middle of the desert, is what made this community what it is today. So we had this social network that operated here for many years because our survival depends on the social connections within the community. And then for more than 10 years, we've been working with JNF to provide this region with independent sources of living. We've built a medical center together. We've built an emergency response center. We've built water reservoirs to provide water for the residents. And there are so many things that now have come to our use when we are isolated from the rest of the country and can maintain other regions in Israel. I have to tell you that the farmers here are taking lots of pride in the fact that during COVID, we've been able to provide the markets in Israel with fresh vegetables and fruits. And the people of Israel know they can always depend on us in the desert, and they will never be out of fruits and vegetables in the market. And that's our little role to ensure food security for Israel.
Thank you, Noa, for all you do for Israel and the Arava. Let's now take a quick look at the Arava region of Israel.
Hi, my name is Noa Zer from Central Arava in Israel. Here in the Central Arava, 60 years ago, there was nothing here but a desolated land. With the help of the pioneers who came here, men and women, we've been able to turn this desert land into a blossoming garden. We don't waste any natural resources simply because we do not have a lot of natural resources. With a lack of water, extreme climate, and a very harsh condition, this desert is one of the hardest places in the world to grow agriculture in. So it's only obvious that with the help of the spirit of the pioneers, this community with 1,000 families is leading Israel's world-renowned agriculture industry, producing more than 50% of its fresh vegetable export. That's right. 50% of Israel's fresh vegetable export comes to the region with no water. How come? Knowledge, spirit, and chutzpah. And this is how you make a desert bloom.
Hi, my name is Mayan Kitron, and I live in the Arava for the past 21 years. As soon as I understand that my husband is not the type of man that will bring me flowers, I decided to take things on my own. Inspired by the spirit of the women in the Arava that flourished the desert in the past 50 years, I'm today the head of the flower department at the R&D. Flowers are like children. They need to be grown with love and someone that they believe that they can grow even in the hardest condition. And this is what we do here, flourish the desert.
Making the desert bloom is a serious matter. It takes not just faith, but it takes a lot of science. And this is exactly what we do here at the Arava Research and Development Center in the middle of the desert, where scientists and local researchers are working together with the farmers of the Arava to invent new breed and to find out the best water efficient solutions and to create protocols to grow different crops here in the harsh Arava desert land. It takes a lot of courage to be able to believe that we can grow here in the desert, and we have proven it with the help of the Jewish National Fund that has been supporting the Research and Development Center for many years, understanding that in a farming community like the Arava, research and development is the heart of everything that goes on here. We wish that we were able to see all of you as soon as possible in the Arava and tell you in person how much it means to have you as our supporters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noah. As you heard earlier in the video, JNF's work is primarily focused on supporting the land and people of Israel. What really makes what we heard from Dr. Ofir and Noah special is that our support of research and development in Israel is something that is for the benefit of all humanity. Food security and sustainability have been identified as top-ranked issues of the century by many major foundations and think tanks around the world. We are proud to be a part of Israel's innovation and support in this area. If you are inspired, motivated, and in the position to do so, we would love for you to make a donation to Jewish National Fund today in support of our overall mission. Instructions on how to donate are on the screen. Pledges can be made and paid out over time, so give from your heart, and then you can also pay later. Let us know in the chat if you would like to learn more. After today's event, we will follow up with you for your feedback and update you on other upcoming programs. Join us as a philanthropic investor. You can donate to a general fund so it can be applied where it's needed most, to a research and development action area, or any of the other 6 action areas mentioned in the video. We hope that you enjoyed today's main program and hope to see you at future events. I would like now to introduce Mr. Robert Grossman. Thank you so much for helping us organize today's event and for moderating the main panel. Bob began practicing securities, M&A, and corporate law at Greenberg Trorick's Miami office in 1982. With wide-ranging experience taking companies public, acquiring and selling companies, and as a business advisor, Bob brings a practical business-oriented approach to his clients' problems, focusing on accomplishing his clients' objectives effectively and efficiently. He has represented a diverse collection of public and private companies, including companies in the medical device, pharmaceutical, biotechnology, agrotech, healthcare, energy and natural resources, technology and software, and communications industries. Bob is a co-founder and currently the chair of Greenberg Trorick's Israel practice and is a frequent business visitor to Israel. In addition to representing Israeli companies seeking to do business outside of Israel, the firm's Israel Practice Group provides assistance to Israeli and U.S. companies in all legal aspects, as well as through introductions to strategic partners. Bob, take it away.
Thank you, Maya. Hoping you can hear me, since I'm old and not too good at this technology, but can you hear me? Yes? Okay, so it's an honor actually to be invited to speak and to moderate this panel for JNF. There aren't too many organizations, if any actually, that have done more to assist Israel than JNF. So I really do appreciate having this opportunity. I've been going to Israel for approximately 20 years, working with companies there. And the people on this panel are really the top people in the life science industry in Israel. I'm going to do a short intro for each one, and then I'll let each of them say a few words about themselves, which will also help bring us into the topics that we're discussing. Nisim Darvish is the managing director of Biomed Israel, and which is the largest life science VC in the world, and he has really been the head of the primary life science VC in Israel. He's also a director of many, many companies. Taking it in alphabetical order, Shai Novik is the chairman of Unlivex, which is developing a cutting-edge pharmaceutical products for treatment of serious illnesses, including sepsis and COVID-19. Previously, he was CEO of Prolor, which had a very strong exit several years ago. Steve Rubin is the executive vice president of OPCO, actually the company that purchased Prolor. And OPCO is a publicly traded pharmaceutical company with multiple products and one of the largest labs in the country, which is currently a leader in COVID-19 testing. Steve has invested in multiple companies in Israel, and OPCO actually has a subsidiary in Israel. And finally, Colonel Dr. Shmuel Shapira, an IDF, prominent IDF officer and a physician, is the professor of medical administration at Hebrew Faculty of Medicine, director general of the Israel Institute for Biological Research, and chair of the board of Life Science Research Israel. He's very involved in the development of a vaccine by the Israeli government. This panel represents a very strong cross-section of people involved in the life science industry in Israel. We have an Israeli VC, a US investor, an Israeli entrepreneur in the life science industry, and a representative of the Israeli government in that industry. So I'm going to now turn to the panel. Nisim, would you like to start with a minute or two about yourself and what you're doing in Israel? You're on mute.
You're mute. Hey,
Okay.
now I was sorry. So Nisim Darvish, I'm a senior managing director with Biomed. So as Bob mentioned, Biomed is the largest healthcare fund in the world for life science. And Biomed decided about 10 years ago to invest into the Israeli life science industry or startup ecosystem. Just maybe in snapshot what's going on and why Israel, why life science. So, I think in Israel nowadays we have about 1,700 life science company for a country size of less than 10 million people. These are a lot of company, a lot of startup companies in the life science. And the stream, or actually the innovation for all these life science company, are coming mostly from the university and the academic institute that we have here in Israel. So I would say it's a very flourished kind of area that we see a lot of interesting ideas coming both from the academic institute, from the university, but also from the hospital. So about 100 new companies are being established every year. I mean, last year, I think it was a record year in terms of raising money for the startup company. Over $1.6 billion was raised for life science company. I mean, even though the COVID-19, I would say in the last few months, there were 3 IPOs of life science companies, Polypid, Ayala, another medtech company. So really a very active kind of environment here in Israel in the last decade in terms of life science.
Okay, thank you. Shai, would you like to go next?
You leave me no choice, so I will go next. So Shai Novik, I'm currently executive chairman of a company named Unlivex Therapeutics. We are dual listed right now on NASDAQ and on Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. The company is involved with developing a new therapy. It's a cell therapy, and it's designed to help patients who are in, I would say, typically what they call severe or critical condition, suffering from organ failure. as a result of an overactivated immune system. So in a sense, a lot of the diseases that you're familiar with, whether it's sepsis, whether it's COVID-19 now that everybody's talking about, and a few others, the main problem is not the caused the immune system to react, but actually the overreaction of the immune system to the presence of that pathogen in the body. And that overreaction, unfortunately, may turn into your own body attacking your own vital organs, be it brain, lungs, liver, kidney, and so forth. So we have a therapy that is in clinical development right now for these various indications. For the last 20 or 30 years, everyone in the world have tried to find solution for these problems, and everybody failed. So there were hundreds of clinical failures. I'm not going to bore you with the science, but we are bringing, we believe, a new kind of a change of the paradigm in terms of the way that we approach these type of diseases. So, Bob, that's for me.
Thank you. Steve? Steve Rubin? There you go. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you. This is Steve Rubin, and as Bob introduced, I am the Executive Vice President of OFCO. We did purchase one of our major acquisitions, is one of the ones that Shai was the CEO of, which was Prolor. We still operate that business. Now it's in Kiryat. But one of our leading programs there is a long-acting growth hormone product that we partner with Pfizer. And after many years of development, that application for approval of the FDA was recently filed. We'll also seek approval in Europe very shortly, and Japan as well. That's a pretty significant drug for us, developed out of an Israeli group. It's a $3.6 billion market, and again, we're pretty excited about bringing that to market next year. We've always had a lot of affinity to Israel. The talent there, the technology, and the innovation has always attracted us. We sold our earlier company, which was IVAX Pharmaceuticals, was with Phil Frost then, to Teva. That was back in 2006, and we started OPCO in 2007. We still have a fine chemicals division right near Haifa. And as I mentioned, we continue to operate our biologics group out of Kiryat. In the U.S., as Bob also mentioned, we both benefited and suffered, as everyone else has, with COVID. But our lab business, we're the third largest reference lab in the United States, behind Quest and LabCorp. But we have a lot of high-profile contracts. We are the ones testing for the National Football League. We completed the testing for the NBA. We tested for Major League Soccer. We're starting to do hockey again, which is coming up. So, those are the high-profile ones. But in addition to that, we were the first ones to open those drive-thrus in New York City. We continue to do most of the testing for New York State and New York City, in both schools and hospitals. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. We certainly applaud the news out of Pfizer with their vaccine. We could all use that. But it's been good for parts of our business. So we certainly kind of look forward to that going away. So thank you.
Good to be with you. I'll try to share with you a very fascinating story. I had a very interesting career, but the last 9 months for me are the most interesting period of my career. And it all began Saturday evening. Saturday evening, I was in a movie theater. I was seeing, I remember the movie in 1914, and then I get calls. I didn't answer them, private phone calls. And then after the fifth attempt, I didn't have any choice, so I answered, and they were looking for me for the Prime Minister's office, that there will be a meeting on Sunday, February 2nd. I came to the meeting. The meeting was regarding vaccines and antibodies for the COVID-19. And I was directed by the Prime Minister to lead an effort in Israel, in the Israel Institute for Research, IIBR, to produce a vaccine for the COVID-19 and a therapeutic antibody. We started, it was very challenging. We are the only facility in Israel capable of planning and producing vaccines. We had some experience. We have some expertise on the antibodies, and we started it. And I'll give you some details, but just to give you the end, and it's not the final end, but it's happy ending. In 9 months, it's like a period of, we started from scratch with just previous knowledge, with some values of excellency. And in 9 months, we started a short time ago to inject to human beings our vaccine, and which we planned and manufactured at the IIBR. And again, we have excellent therapeutic antibodies. We were the first in the world. So how did we do it? We have a very strong, we are strong, small but strong R&D, governmental R&D institute. Basically with knowledge, basic knowledge is chemical medicine, biology, and environmental sciences. And we drafted everyone, and people started to work like 24/7 during weekends, during Jewish Saturdays, including Yom Kippur. In Yom Kippurim, dozens of people were working here. We started, and we were in a big race with the biggest, richest companies in the world. And there are some advantages, but also some disadvantages to be a governmental office. I mean, you have some, the framework is much more defined on one side, but on the other side, it's the bureaucracy eats you a little bit more. So, and if talking about the budget, our budget was like 3%, sometimes even less than the big companies. But we were very efficient. We built a vaccine that is based on viral platform. It's a virus, VSV virus. It's a virus that it's animal virus that don't do any harm to people. And on this virus, we translated the famous spikes from the coronavirus. And when the body sees the virus, the platform with the spikes, it sees like the coronavirus, and develop vaccine. We already manufacture 25,000, which are in bottles already for the clinical trials, and another million units, and all this in 9 months, which is really a very big achievement. I think it's one of the biggest achievements for science in Israel, let's say probably the last decade. So I'm very proud, very privileged to lead this effort.
Thank you. I'm going to have some questions on that in a little bit as we go through the panel, but and I'm sure maybe the audience will have a few. I just wanted to go back a second. When I started going to Israel, there was a very young life science industry, with the exception of Teva, which Steve mentioned. Teva was really the impetus for generic drugs and reduced prices for pharmaceutical products. In that period of time, as Nisim mentioned, there's been significant growth in the industry, and it's far more mature. Some interesting companies, including some in the Florida area, for those of you from Florida and Miami itself. For the panel, how would you describe really the focus, and we all understand COVID, but the focus of the current life science environment in Israel? Nisim, you mentioned a little bit about fundraising, but what are the companies focusing on? What do you see really when you look out there, and how promising do you see it? Maybe we'll start with you, Nisim.
Sure. So, Israel has been known for the last 2 decades to be more kind of a medical device country. But I think in the last decade or so, we see a shift from just medical devices more into the biotech. So we see more and more companies on the biotech field. And what is interesting about these companies, several of them are really taking their drugs, not only for phase 1 and phase 2, really take them to the late stage, phase 3. So, companies like Polypid, Ayala, and some other, are really pushing, the development further down the road. So we do see increase on the number of biotech companies in Israel. Another very interesting sector that is really growing tremendously, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, is actually what we call the combination of healthcare IT, telemedicine, and infrastructure or information technology. Israel was one of the first countries in the world that actually all your record or your health record are being digitized. So we already, for the last 2 decades, there's a ton of data that actually reside within the hospital and what we call Kupat Cholim, which is like health insurance company here in Israel. So I think, in the last 2 or 3 years, we see more and more companies actually utilizing, their technology, the internet, actually to monitor, to follow patients, to use artificial intelligence to more precise treatment for patients, whether it be cancer, whether it be neurodegenerative diseases, or even just for diagnostic. So both the biotech and the healthcare IT industry is, I think nowadays are the one that actually are really growing fast. While the medtech is still there, but in the last year there was a lot of consolidation worldwide in the medtech industry. So right now the medtech is still thriving, but I would say less than the biotech and the healthcare IT industry here.
Shai, you have anything to add, or?
No, I think Nissim is in an amazing position of looking at the macro. He's from his fund. He gets to see everybody and what everybody's doing. We are very focused on what we do, and so I don't have anything to add to Nissim.
Well, how about from the fundraising perspective? I know that there's been a lot more. It's been a significant quarter or year in fundraising, but it's not that easy all the time. Even though it takes time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Nissim and I go a long way back. We're not only friends, but we are colleagues in the business here. And Nissim has been for many years now on the side of the fund, the venture capital fund, providing capital to companies. And I have been on the other side of trying with young companies, trying to go out and raise capital for preclinical development or clinical development. And I think it's very comparatively, it's always difficult to raise capital, right? For anything, it's always difficult. But specifically in Israel, it's very difficult for us to get the attention of large, prominent venture capital funds from the United States to get on the plane. I'm talking pre-COVID, okay? So, but get on the plane and come to Israel and do diligence on interesting opportunities, because there are also plenty of interesting opportunities in pharma and biotech space in the United States. And so it has been very, very, I think challenging. There are funds like Nissim's fund in Israel. If I'm not mistaken, there are probably like 4 or 5 that could be called funds. I don't even know if we can get to 5, but so I know it's kind of awkward to say 5 because only in every building in central Manhattan you have more than 5, right? In every building you have more than 5. So it's very difficult to get the attention of these 5 locals here. It's very difficult to get the attention of the US funds that are going to have to schlep on a plane and come to Israel to do diligence and so forth. So it is. So the Israeli companies have to always try to somehow raise the capital and try to be as efficient as possible in utilizing this capital to get to meaningful clinical milestones that may allow them to get some attention and raise capital or take the company public or something like that. So I think it's still a huge challenge for us to do that typically.
Steve, is there anything, do you see any change from when you first started more than 20 years ago, I think, investing in Israeli companies or technologies to today? And if what would you be looking at today? Did we lose you?
I keep getting muted. I don't know why. But I would guess I'd say the one difference, Bob, is it's become a bit more mature in the pharmaceutical space. We still have invested in several companies. I sit on the board of two other companies that were technologies, mostly device side, that came out of Israel. And I guess when we first started, it was heavy device, with the exception, of course, with Prolor, of course, and others. But I think what's exciting is more companies are actually trying to continue to grow. It used to be more serial entrepreneur. So you start one, you sell it off early, you move on to the next. And there weren't a lot of companies outside of Teva that were actually being built. I mean, I could, with Shai's new company now and other companies, I'm seeing more companies staying within Israel, stay within the company for a longer period of time. And maybe that's a part of the funding. Maybe it is early stage. Used to be very easy to finance, not so easy now. I mean, there's more of a demand for investors of data, which requires you to actually do more work and more clinical work and the like, rather than just a platform idea. So I'm actually happy to see it. I think it's been maturing and it has moved what I thought was heavily med tech to a little more biotech.
Well, as somebody we know used to say, Israel needs more Tevas, right?
Right.
Shmuel, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but I also wanted to ask you what effect the Pfizer vaccine has had on you, and maybe if you want to discuss even more generally what, to the extent you can, what Israel's doing with respect to COVID.
I want to explain a little bit about our choice of vaccine. There are few options for vaccine. I don't want to get into too deep, but we chose a way which is, on one side, it's conservative. The platform that we chose is a platform that is used for the last 3 years for the Ebola vaccine. This is on one side, and on the other side, it's a very modern approach involving biological engineering and so on. The Pfizer is an RNA vaccine, Moderna is an RNA vaccine, and Actos is an RNA vaccine. There's no till now, there's no RNA vaccine in the market. This will be the first. It's a new approach. And nobody knows the long-term effects of it. It may be a great idea. It's simpler, as a matter of fact, it's simpler to produce RNA vaccine than others. There are other companies that, like the Russian and Chinese, which are like black boxes. They use a very old approach of attenuated or dead viruses. And it has a lot of drawbacks, these areas, and it's not a modern, but it's a safe process. It's a safe process. A few others, AstraZeneca use also a viral platform, a different virus, a virus that causes mild disease in persons, and therefore you may have antibody for the platform, not just for the spikes. The only company that uses a process that is very similar to us, it's a huge company and we are a little bit ahead of them, is Merck. So I think and I feel that we produce effective. We have done much more preclinical studies than anyone else in the world. We were very cautious. The Ministry of Health also made us very cautious. They didn't take decisions easily. We didn't make any shortcuts or any round of corners or things like this. We went very conservatively, slowly, but we provide, I think, an effective and certainly safe vaccine. Our experience till now with human is very good, and I hope that we'll continue with this. Something that I have to emphasize, I always say that there are many birds on the trees, but these are birds on the trees. And for Israel, we don't know even if we can enjoy them, and we don't know when we can enjoy them. We are the IBR. Our first target is this population, citizens of Israel. We will produce 15 million units, and Israel is the first. Israel, of course, is the first for us, and we are doing it. The second stage may be some considerations of some commercials opportunity, but this is certainly a second priority. The first priority is the population of Israel.
Thank you. Shai, did COVID change anything for your company?
Yeah, I think I'm in the camp of Steve here, which apologized at the beginning of the introduction that actually COVID for OPCO was, from their business perspective, was actually beneficial because they suddenly got into utilize their inherent strength and started offering and becoming a leader in COVID-19 testing in the US. So for us, it was kind of the same. We have been developing our main product for a main indication called sepsis, which is a life-threatening high mortality disease, which is unmet medical need, despite many efforts to find a solution for that in the last 20, 30 years. And every year in the US, more than 275,000 patients die from sepsis. So as big as COVID is, sepsis is just way bigger, right? But no one talks about it just because it happens every year and it doesn't affect the economy. So we have been developing for that. And essentially the main problem in sepsis is very similar to the main problem in COVID-19 for patients who are in the severe/critical category. So COVID-19 starts as a viral problem. And most people that are infected, as you know, with COVID-19, many of them are asymptomatic. Some of them have very little symptoms. And then there's a small group that the disease affects slightly more. And these may have to be hospitalized. And when they're hospitalized, they are being categorized into 4 different categories, kind of a mild, moderate, severe, and critical. And the NIH is giving that classification. So while the disease is in the mild and moderate stage, it's still a viral disease. It's like a flu, like a flu on steroids, right? So it's a flu, very difficult one, but still mild and moderate. There is no overreaction of the immune system to the presence of the SARS-2 virus. But then for some of the patients, most of the patients are recover from that stage. And whether it's they recover spontaneously or whether, as was mentioned here, they may be getting some antiviral medications like remdesivir, or they may, from Gilead, or they may get plasma-based antibodies, or now the new Regeneron and Lilly antibodies. And so all these antibodies are antibodies against the virus. So basically, they're very good for the stage in which the problem is viral. Okay, so it's the mild and moderate patients. But when the patient still progress, unfortunately, to the stage of what we define as severe critical, the virus, the SARS virus, SARS-2 virus is not a problem anymore. It's not the problem anymore. The problem is that the immune system of the patient is attacking the patient. And it's attacking, as I said before, vital organs. In SARS-2, in COVID-19, mainly it's the lungs, but could be brain, could be also kidneys and heart, and so forth. So when we heard about all of this and spoke to all the COVID-19 experts around the world, we figured out that our therapy that was designated and designed for treatment of these type of patients out of sepsis, maybe it can help with COVID-19 patients in that particular stage. And so we ran a small clinical study. We asked the regulator here to give us a chance to infuse our drug product to 20 patients, and they said no. They were very conservative, and that's fine. They said no, you infuse it to 5 patients and let's see what happens. So we infused the drug product to 5 patients. 3 of them were defined as severe and 2 as critical. And what happened was that the severe ones, on average, left the hospital, recovered from COVID-19, and left the hospital after an average of 5 days. And the two severe and the two critical ones, these were the severe, and the two critical ones left the hospital after an average of 9 days. And all 5 patients did not have COVID-19 in their body based on PCR tests at the time that they left the hospital. So, and there were no recorded any side effects or anything like that. So we were encouraged by it. The Israeli Ministry of Health was encouraged by that. And then the Israeli Ministry of Health asked us to submit a kind of a summary report of the study. And once we did that, I think it's a Israeli record, and maybe somebody can correct me here, but we have received an approval to initiate our phase 2 in COVID-19 patients, same category of patients, severe and critical, in 8 days. 8 days it took the Ministry of Health to actually review our data and approve the study. I don't think that I've seen anything like this in the history, so I just wanted to say thank you in this forum to all the team at the Ministry of Health that really took this very seriously, and they sat night and day and reviewed the data and allowed us to start a phase 2 in COVID-19 patients. And we have initiated that study and already announced that we've started recruiting patients into that study, and we will have some interim data for that later on, probably in December. And I share obviously everybody's excitement about the Pfizer announcement from yesterday. However, for us, if we assume that the vaccines will have an average efficacy of say 85% in the general population, even if that's true, and even if everyone will be vaccinated, everyone, which is probably not the case, but let's assume that everyone will be vaccinated, then you would most likely expect to see next year in the US about 15%. So if there is an efficacy of 85%, you would still expect to see 15% of patients that would go through the normal pathophysiology as what happened in the last 9 months. So if in the US today you have 250,000 mortalities from COVID-19, even if the vaccines are 85% effective and everybody will be vaccinated, you would expect to see about 15% of that number of mortalities next year. So about 40,000 in the US. So we think that treatment for patients who unfortunately, despite being vaccinated, or that have chosen not to be vaccinated, or for which the vaccine is not highly effective for whatever reason, and they end up being in a like severe or critical condition, then therapies, if our product gets approved, then it would most likely be either the only one or among the only ones that can help these type of patients. And so it's a very long answer, Bob, to a short question that you asked, but for us, COVID-19 dramatically changed our priorities. We suddenly had a new indication that we never thought we would do, and we never heard about this thing. And suddenly it became one of the top 3 clinical indications we're pursuing alongside sepsis and alongside solid cancers, which is something else that we're pursuing.
Yes, it's not thank you for that, because you made it easy on me. I didn't have to talk that much. But it's not that unusual it's anywhere actually, but in Israel also. I had another company that I worked with that was using medication in Africa for HIV, and they noticed that the people who had COVID, who were taking their medication, all got better, and they ran some tests and had pretty good results actually. You seem in general, and briefly, I mean, can you sort of summarize what's going on, or maybe Shmuel, what's going on in Israel with the COVID and overall in terms of the life science industry?
Well, so, in terms of the COVID, I mean, we can look at it 2 different ways. One way is the number of companies that are chasing after the COVID-19. So I think just in Israel itself, I know about 2 or 3 companies that are trying to develop their own vaccine for COVID-19. In terms of diagnostic of COVID-19, I mean, I can count more than 10 companies that are trying to develop a new rapid COVID-19 testing. Some of them are already, in final stages. So that's in terms of the COVID itself for, the life science industry and the number of companies that are actually chasing. I mean, these are 3 for vaccine, 10 for diagnostic, and there are many other like Enlivix. I think Enlivix is the pioneer one and the most advanced one. They're developing different type of treatment for COVID-19, seriously ill patient, Enlivix, Pluristem, and there are some other companies that are trying to do that. So these are in terms of the numbers of companies that are trying to develop kind of treatment for COVID or really or diagnostic for COVID. In terms of the financial market, I mean, and in terms of the startup or the life science startup scene, I think so far, I mean, I would say it's tougher to raise money for the life science and companies here in Israel, and I think it will become even more harsh, as we move into next year. As mentioned here, I think, people are not traveling anymore, and the industry, the VC industry here in Israel for life science, as Shai already indicated, is another big one. And about 70% of the money are coming from outside, mostly from US, but also from Europe. And the fact that people are not going to travel soon, I guess, I mean, that's mean that actually some of the company will find it very hard to raise money and keep going and developing the drugs or medical devices. So I think that we'll face some challenges ahead of us in terms of financing these companies.
Yeah, so apparently we have a number of questions, so I was gonna ask you about the UAE, but maybe that's in one of the questions, but can you, are there any companies that you wanna mention or any one company beside your own specifically that you find extremely interesting in Israel?
So I think, Insight Tech is one that I think is very interesting. These are the HIFU company that enable, treatment of neurodegenerative diseases and movement disorder using HIFU from outside the bodies. I mean, we invested in another company that are doing HIFU for pain management. I think that's one of the topics that I think is very interesting. The other one that I'll mention is Taito. Taito Care is actually, it's already commercialized in US. It's actually enabling families to take, some diagnostic measurement at home, especially for families with kids. Instead of going to the doctor, you can take all the measurement at home while the physician is online or offline. And actually, instead of going to the clinic, you can get the result online while the physician is watching you. These are products already, being on the stores at the Best Buy and other health insurance company that are selling it in US. So I think that's again, these are the telemedicine kind of company and the medtech company. On the pharma side, I think Enlivix is an interesting one. Pluristem is another one, cell therapy for different indications that I will highlight. ILA for cancer. So there are several others.
So actually, Insight Tech is very interesting because it in the sense, it's very interesting in what it does, but it's very interesting in that it was a company that was around for a long time with an amazing technology. And until everything got put together the right way and the stars aligned, it sort of floundered. And now it's an extremely successful company with a treatment that basically gets rid of tremors without surgery in patients with essential tremor and probably soon Parkinson's. And actually it's headquartered in Miami, in the US, and Israel it's headquartered in Haifa. Anyone else?
I would probably mention Canada, which is, I think, is a very high quality company. It's more mature, obviously. They have lots of revenues compared to us. We have zero, and they have a lot. So they have probably like, I think, 70 or $100 million of revenues or something like this, and they have a product, and they have a great team, and they have a great manufacturing facility and many different indications. So I think overall a very high quality company.
Okay. All right, I think we'll make time for the questions now. We have several of them apparently, so go ahead.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to our panel. The first question is for Noa. Living in the remote Arava desert, what is your source of inspiration for your research subjects?
First of all, I want to say how honored we are to be included in the so prestigious panel that is chasing a cure for COVID and other diseases. I want to remind everybody that at the end, everybody needs to eat. So I would bet on the Agrotech industry and our ability to provide food for remote places and also to places that will experience famine in years to come. And they, like the Biological Institute, we are a government-supported public institute that is designed to bring knowledge and to support Israel. With the knowledge of farming, but also with other sources of knowledge. And I think that what inspires us is, first of all, the farmers here who've been able to grow in the middle of the desert for many years, and we've been doing that successfully. Actually, we are experiencing only a growth of interest since a lot of countries are now dealing with food security issues that COVID also raises. And the quality of food, and everybody is gardening at home, of course. And also in the biotech, we look into the desert and we see all the plants that is growing here under such harsh conditions. And we are wondering if they can survive the harsh desert climate and this hostile environment. What's within it that can help us fight against different diseases? And we don't underestimate Mother Nature, because at the end, she knows best. So this is what we're trying to do, looking into natural surroundings and the knowledge that we have gathered, and to see interesting solutions to global problems.
Thank you, Noa. Next question is for Bob or our panelists. Is there an ETF or exchange traded fund that contains major pharma development in Israel?
It seems to be being answered on the
Yeah, sorry.
on the chat. Go ahead, Nisim.
No, so some of this company, I mean, most of these company are private companies. So there is no ETF for the private company. For the public one, I mean, most of them are either dual listed or listed only on the NASDAQ. So there is no specific ETF on Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, as much as I know, to just cover pharma or the medtech company.
Actually,
Shai, maybe you know better than me, Shai.
Well, there is on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, there is like an index. It's called the Biomed Index, and there are some local funds here, mutual funds actually, but these are Israeli mutual funds that try to track these companies. There are some issues though with respect to, we need to take a good look at it, because the question is the weights of the companies and how do they, and they actually mix together biotech and pharma and medical devices and digital health and whatever. So everything is kind of mixed, but that would be for someone that just wants an overall exposure to the sector in total, I think would be an interesting way to get in.
Yeah, I think there is one ETF, but it's for Israeli companies in general, not for life science. I don't remember the name right now, but I know. So if somebody wants to contact me afterwards, I'll get that information. There also is,
there are ETFs for Israel, kind of Israel technology or something like that, but
right.
not specifically for biotech or biomeds.
And it's very hard for a smaller investor to invest in one of the private companies. I don't know what the minimum investment some of these companies will take, but usually it's I guess there is one way, which is our crowd, which invests in certain private companies, and for accredited investors can get part of that with as little as $10,000. and they do invest in some key life science companies.
Thank you, Bob. To the Israelis on the panel, next question. Without getting political, how big of a factor do you see Agrotech and other Israeli innovations as being drivers in the current peace process deals being made with Arab countries?
Noah, that's for you, right?
Yeah, I'll take that. Actually, we've had visits throughout the years at our research and development center from countries that Israel had no formal diplomatic relationship with, but is sharing the same challenges as we do. And we've been helping Jordan for many years with knowledge to their farmers. I have to tell you that a week before signing the agreement with the United Arab Emirates, we had a special visit by a delegation that was interested in farming and agricultural collaboration with our experts. We are hoping to get students maybe from the United Emirates. And I'm also a farmer, by the way, as everybody here in the Arava. So I'll share a secret with you, but it has to be kept among us. We got a notice from our marketing company that we were expecting to start marketing to the United Emirates in December. So I don't know, maybe in a month, my peppers will have stickers on Israeli products going to Saudi Arabia. And for years, and I don't think they know it, but for years we've been selling dates to the Emirates and to other Arab countries. They've been shipped to Europe and have been labeled with a Swiss name or so. So there are a lot of Arab countries that are enjoying our dates during Ramadan. Hopefully we can make it official because we've got a lot of knowledge to contribute, and we do believe that agriculture can be a bridge between people, because at the end of the day, as I told you, everybody needs to eat. And in this desert of ours, we are meeting the same challenges. So hopefully agriculture can be a mechanism of change. We saw it, by the way, in other countries where agriculture led the way to formal international relationship. It's probably clean tech, agriculture, and biotech that are the three main topics that a lot of countries are interested in. And of course, everything that has to do with water that, make countries think issues and focus on the and see what we can benefit from collaborating with Israel. But I'll keep you posted on those peppers going to Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Noah. Our next question is for Professor Shapira. Is your vaccine research utilizing plasma from COVID-19 survivors? Do we have Professor Shapira here? Okay, I'm not sure I see him, but I'll skip to the next question and we can always come back. For the panel, how difficult is it to recruit participants for clinical trials in Israel? And are you successful in maintaining compliance with protocols?
All right, maybe I can start. As for us, I think, or for any company that obviously is recruiting for COVID-19 studies, the regulatory environment has been very supportive, and it's you can move very fast, and the hospitals, the physicians, everybody wants to contribute, everybody wants to help, and so getting a protocol in place, getting a clinical trial in place, and recruiting patients has been faster than ever. For other indications, obviously, it's I don't think that we saw too many problems in recruitment. I think, at least from what we've heard from most of the companies that we are familiar with, other than some indications, clinical indications, in which the patients, for example, were supposed to come to the hospital to get a treatment, say a treatment for the eye, for example. So all the patients were supposed to come to the hospital, but then in the midst of the COVID-19 epidemic, they were all scared to actually go to the hospital and get the treatment, right? So even though these patients theoretically are there, they did not want to participate in the clinical trial unless their disease is critical. So if it's not a critical disease, they wanted to postpone. So some companies had some issues with recruitment of patients because of those problems. And obviously, as you know, in general, this has nothing to do with COVID, but in general, because Israel is a small country, and sometimes there are some clinical indications that are, for example, orphan diseases, for which the prevalence of the disease or in Israel, in terms of the absolute number of patients, is very small. And so you can't just do a clinical trial in Israel. You have to have clinical sites either in the US, in Europe, or somewhere else in the world. But that's just in general. That has nothing to do with COVID-19.
Thank you, Shai. Our next question for the panel is, are the vaccines being developed by your organizations 1 dose or 2 doses?
Our expert on that may not be on anymore.
No, he's on, but you need to unmute him.
He's on, yeah, he needs to unmute.
He's on.
He's here.
No, you have to unmute me.
Yes, so we need to unmute him.
You're unmuted.
Okay. First of all, really, sorry. First of all, for the antibodies, I want to respond before. There are 2 types of antibodies therapies. There's one plasma, convalescent patient plasma, and this treatment is you take all the antibodies. You don't know exactly how many antibodies you have there. You don't have what type of antibodies you have there, and this is one kind of therapy. The therapy that we provide, which is different, and this is what President Trump got. This is a monoclonal antibodies. It's like targeted missile. Targeted missiles that go through the window, exactly the virus. You know exactly what you take. You choose you select from a big library of antibodies, the right antibody, and this you provide to the patient. So it's totally different. This is the modern treatment for cancers. This is the modern treatment for infectious disease, and this is the modern treatment for corona. And we had 2 publications in Nature Communication regarding our treatment, and this is the modern treatment. This is the state of the art. Regarding our vaccine, first of all, we got quite many volunteers. People trust us. People know that we have been peer-reviewed, not just by the regulation. We were peer-reviewed by leading scientists in Israel, in the States, in Europe. We had many publications in the most prestigious medical and biological journals, and people know, people trust, and therefore we have overflow of volunteers for our study. Just for the vaccination, we started vaccination. We have already history of dozens of vaccines beyond us. Regarding the vaccine, we believe that our vaccine will be prime boost, which is 2. We believe that our vaccine will be 1-shot vaccine. And this is a huge difference. Most of the big companies talking about 2 shots. And just imagine, for the population of the States, 330 million, even if with 85% response or with 50% response, just imagine 160 million twice injection. So the difference between 1 injection and 2 injections is huge. It's a huge logistical difference. The fact that you have to storage, imagine storing twice as much as vaccines in -70 centigrades, then versus storing half of it. So it's huge vaccination. So therefore, all the comparisons, antibodies are not the same. It's not a generic product, and there are different type of antibodies, and there are different efficacy of antibodies. The same with vaccines. Vaccine is not something that you go and buy bread in the supermarket. Vaccine is a process of experience. Moderna never manufactured a vaccine. Actorius is a small company with few dozen workers, and it's not comparing, it's oranges to apples. Therefore, I think that our products are superior. We have other efforts, but the two main efforts is the vaccine and antibodies, and I think that we have a superior products.
Thank you, Dr. Shapira. And to follow up on your answer, is your vaccine research using plasma from COVID-19 survivors?
No, for the vaccine, we use a virus transfers. For the antibodies, we have two sources. One source is a convalescent plasma, but we don't give the plasma. We pick up the right vaccine. We have libraries of vaccines. We pick up the most potent antibodies, and we just reproduce them. We reproduce them. This is one source. The other source for antibodies is chimeric antibodies from animals, and this is by bioengineering. It's combination of the one part of the basic part from human and the other part from animals, and this is our antibodies. The vaccines is not from plasma, it's from virus. It's a virus that we multiply it in fermenters, and we engineer it with the spikes of the coronavirus.
Thank you, Professor. Another question for you. Can you clarify your statement on the first developed vaccines being Israeli related to the ones that are late stage now around the world, like Pfizer?
Yeah. Again, Pfizer is a different concept. Pfizer is used like Moderna and Actorius. They use an RNA vaccine, which is it's a new concept. There's no experience with this. There's no one vaccine running RNA vaccines utilizing the word. Our platform is the platform that was used in Ebola. It was used in the last 3 years for 300,000 patients. So it's beyond the clinical trials. This is a very, very proven, very safe platform. And therefore, we think that we choose something that it's on one side, it's a modern approach for vaccine productions. On the otherwise, it's something that it's utilized for 3 years on the hundreds of thousands of people, and we feel that it's very safe.
Thank you, Dr. Shapira. Next question for the panel. Are you seeing long haul syndrome cases, including from those treated with antisepsis medication?
All right. So basically what we have done, I can talk about specifically about our clinical experience, which I know is maybe slightly different than others. As you know, in COVID-19, there are some patients that experience what's called long COVID, which basically means that they are recovering from COVID-19 and they are being released back to their home. But then thereafter, they continue to suffer from some symptoms. Could be cognitive issues, could be lung, could be heart, could be all of them. So it looks like the disease kind of is not leaving them completely. So that's called like long COVID. We specifically, our data, we did not measure in the clinical trial of COVID that we did. We did not look for long COVID. We were looking for to save the patients, essentially. These were patients that were critical. We do believe, but that's just a theoretical framework. We don't have proof for that by rebalancing, our therapy is based on rebalancing the immune system back into its homeostatic state. So we believe that with our therapy, the whole immune system goes back into a rebalanced mode. And in that mode, it has a better chance of fighting the virus, eliminating it, eliminating any long COVID and so forth. So it's just, right now, it's just a theoretical belief that we have. In sepsis, what we saw was something very interesting. We have tested the drug product on 10 sepsis patients, and that each of them had between 2 to 5 organ failing. And all of these 10 patients have recovered completely from their organ failures. So each organ in each of the patients had complete recovery to the pre-sepsis state. And all of them, and we had no mortality at all of the patients during the 28 days that we observed them. And we compared that to matched historical controls from the same hospital, so same ICU, same hospital, same profile of patients. And in that population, after close matching, there was 28% mortality in 28 days for the historical controls that were treated with standard of care, compared to 0 mortality in our group. But yet, when you extend that period to 90 days, 90 days, there was 50% mortality in the matched historical control, so 50. 1 of 2 died in 90 days of similar patients that were hospitalized with sepsis in that hospital. And we still had, in 90 days, we still had 0 mortality in the group of 10 that we treated on top of standard of care with our drug product Alocetra. So again, we still need to prove it in larger studies. One large study is going to be initiated hopefully this quarter with 160 patients that we're going to be initiating in sepsis. But it appears to be, from just initial clinical hint and indication and the foundational theory of the science and the mechanism of action behind our drug product, that we have a pretty good chance of eliminating long sepsis and long COVID.
Thank you, Shai. You're running a little bit over time. So to respect everyone's time, we'll ask one last question and then we can address other questions individually after the event. So the last question is for Noa. Is genetic modification being used in your Agrotech, or are you concentrating on techniques and practices learned from local flora?
No, we don't do any genetic modification. Actually, everything we do is focused on using natural ingredients and to use naturally or biologically controlled methods in order to contribute to the quality of vegetables and fruits that we are producing, and also to help us fight against diseases.
Thank you, Noa. So thank you again to Bob, our sponsors, Peter and Sol, all of today's speakers, and to all of you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on December 1st, which is Giving Tuesday. We will be hosting our annual National Breakfast for Israel over Zoom. Come hear American TV writer and comedian Phil Rosenthal from Everybody Loves Raymond and documentary series Somebody Fit Phil. Thank you all for attending today's event.